everybody knows how to bake a cake. As long as you can read the back of a box, I'm sure you know how to bake a cake. What people don't know is that you can substitute ingredients and change the directions to make a better, more moist, and more structured cake. For instance, step 1, it says to preheat your oven to 350 degrees for a glass pan or a shiny metal pan. Or you can set it to 325 degrees if you have a dark pan or a non-stick pan. But what I do when I bake cakes is I set it to 325 degrees instead of 350. What this does for the cake is it helps it cook more evenly. Instead of having it cook like a hill shape, for instance, if you have it at 350 degrees, here's the pan, the cake will come out like this. But if you cook at 325, you're lowering the temperature, allowing the cake to cook evenly and the heat to go to the center of the cake better. So it won't cook as hill shaped, it'll be more like flat. And then in step 2, it tells you to mix all the ingredients, which include eggs, oil, and water. To make your cake more structural and more moist, instead of using water, you substitute it with milk. So, milk is 87.7% water. So what this means is that you can substitute the water with milk, 1 cup for 1 cup ratio, and the cake, the consistency of the cake won't be any different. It'll just help your cake be more structured. And since milk has more protein in it, it'll help your cake be more moist and more structured. Then in step 3, you're supposed to place the cake in the oven. And usually people use baking powder and oil or Crisco pan, but what I use for my cake is vegetable oil. And you just rub that all over the pan, and that'll help it cook more better because it won't let the cake stick to the pan. It'll help it like separate easier. So in step 3, it says to, when you put your cake in the oven, you're supposed to stick a toothpick in the center of the cake and remove it when it comes out clean. You take the cake out and you allow it to cool down in the pan for 10 minutes. What people don't know is that when you do this, you let the cake cook in the pan while it's cooling down since it's still hot, and it'll evaporate the moisture from the cake and it will come out dry. So when you stick the toothpick in, instead of letting it come out like this, a clean toothpick, you let it come out with like a little bit of cake on it. So then when you remove the cake and you let it cool down for 10 minutes, it's still cooking the cake and it'll cook it to where it's done. So after the 10 minutes, when you remove the cake, it's still hot, but it's not as dry, it's more structured. So, here's your cake. And what we've done is instead of setting the oven to 350 degrees, we've set it to 325 degrees. So this will make it cook more evenly. And then instead of using water, we substituted it with milk to allow the cake to have more structure and more moisture instead of coming out as dry. And then instead of removing the cake as soon as the toothpick is dry, is clean, we remove it when there's still a little cake on it, so it won't come out as dry when you let it cool down, because it's still evaporating the moisture in the cake. So when you cut into it, instead of cutting into a slice, it's gonna cut into a slice, but it's gonna be like crumbled. And then here's your cake. So from this, you learn how to make your cake more structured and more moist with not really making a difference to the ingredients at all, just substituting milk and lowering the temperature. And that's how you make your perfect cake.